Hi, I read the book Breathing Underwater by Alex Flynn, and I'm going to open up with a quote. Underwater was gray and bright at the same time. Breathing through a snorkel, all you can hear is your own snorkel-enhanced breath in your ears. I thought this is a good quote to introduce the book because it has to do with Nick, the main character's situation, and describes the title Breathing Underwater. So like I said, Nick is the main character. He is a 16-year-old boy who was once a popular, likable kid until he got in some legal trouble with his girlfriend, Caitlin, for hitting her. In court, he was guilty. That was the verdict. And so due to that, he had to attend anger management classes as well as write a 500-word journal per week. And throughout this whole experience, he loses his friends. There's tension between his girlfriend and even his abusive dad. And so all of this untangled in the book Breathing Underwater. If you read this book, which I think you should, you'll understand Nick's situation and how he overcomes it. So that being said, I would recommend this book due solely on the fact because it's a fast read. The pages are short and the font is pretty big, so I liked that. And then I also liked how it contained funny statements despite the subject matter, because even though it's a kind of a tough subject dealing with abuse, it was funny. And then also the story's plot was interesting to me because I'm interested in the court stuff, and I like legal related things. So the target audience, I would think it'd be for older teenagers, like 15 years or older. Due to the content, there's so much content as it deals with abuse, and I think it's gender neutral. I don't think one gender over the other would be fitting for this book. So as far as the literary merit goes, the author established the plot through a first-person point of view, and that also helps characterize Nick, as Nick's writing it in first person. So, in this book, you can clearly see how Nick feels in the beginning of the book towards the end, based off him being the one to say his thoughts, actions, and emotions. So the reader knows that at all times. As far as other characters go, they are described throughout the book in Nick's journal entries, which I talked about above, and the book that's taking place. So the journal entries are a different part of the book. It's about half the book, and as you can tell, they're darker than the normal font. And so that Nick's describing in the journals past events and how he was feeling then and then now. So it's a good parallel. So that helps move along the plot as well as describe characters, how they changed before the incident of Nick hitting his girlfriend and after the incident. So a quote from before the incident I have that Nick stated. It says, "I love you, Caitlin. The words escaped before I could stop them. Too late to take back or pretend I was joking. I waited for her to recoil, or maybe she'd say she loved me too. Could she? Please say it, Cat. Please. I love you too." So obviously this was a good memory. It was before Nick hit her and all the legal trouble happened. So this was a good memory. And then that was from the journal. And now in the present, this is what Nick said. "When I walk by, she stops laughing. Her eyes meet mine, but she makes the type of sound you'd get seeing a palmetto bug or some other vermin." So now Nick is describing how Caitlin is to a bug or a vermin. So I think that's interesting because now, after the accident, he can't even, they can't even talk to each other. But before, they were in love with each other and everything. So that was interesting. It's a parallel between the two. Also, that's described between Nick's friends, Nick's best friend Tom, also kind of situation like that, describing the past events in the journals and then what was happening after the incident. As far as the literary merit goes, the author does describe a lot of figurative language. So like how I said how Caitlin's voice was being compared to the palmetto bug or some other vermin, that's figurative language. And also the first quote that I said relating to Nick breathing underwater. So one more thing I thought was interesting about this book as like a conclusion was that the author kind of made the reader feel sympathy towards the perpetrator, Nick, in the situation more so than the victim. So Nick obviously hit his girlfriend, but throughout this whole book, you got Nick's point of view on it and how he overcame what he did and how he found hope and how he moved on from the situation and how he learned from it. If you read this book, which everyone should, you'll understand that in Nick's point of view.